Bill, and I'm back with my monthly update of my reading. So, June 2026. So, the first book I read is The Founding Sparks, a First Matter Saga novella by W.K. Gorbet. This takes place after his first book, Echoes of Destruction, and it comes from a character that's a second hand, or not second hand, a secondary character that you meet later in the book. And the it's interesting because this novella is pretty much solely from that character's point of view, and that character does have a big part to play in the plot. So it's kind of interesting seeing a secondary character as the main character in this novella, and it kind of transfers the story transfers into more character driven as opposed to plot driven, which the first book, Echoes of Destruction, is very, very plot driven. It's a heavy plot. There's a lot of moving parts to said plot. And the novella is more of a character study on this character after he learns some things and some magical things happen to him. So it's a pretty interesting novella. It's a shorter novella, and he goes through some cool character growth, and I really enjoyed it. And you could definitely see WK's writing growth between the first novel as his debut and then this novella, and he really grows into it. So it's a very good novella, and I suggest you check it out. The First Matter saga is a good science fantasy story with some anime, inspiration and some JRPG inspiration and cool magic and stuff like that. So check out Echoes of Destruction, the first book, and then The Founding Sparks just came out this month. It came out on July 1st, so give it a check. The next book I read was Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. This is a standalone, I think. It reads as a standalone, and it comes across as a standalone, but there is some open interpretation to it at the end that could be a sequel someday down the line. But this chonker was so much fun. It is kind of a breath of fresh air, to be honest. It's written in a very Tolkien style of the mundane, the daily stuff, the things that happen between the action. There is a lot of slow build in this story. It's almost 800 pages. It's like 750 some, 770 some pages, and it just slowly builds up and up and up and up. And it starts very slow. Like I said, it starts slow because it starts with this older warrior. He's the sole POV. This character, Telio. He's a famed warrior, but he's retired. And now all he does is he's a stonemason. He's creating a mosaic for the queen, right? And you go through the meticulous scenes of him building this stone mosaic, and it starts slow. Like, it feels slow, and you're kind of like, well, where's this going to go? And then some bad things happen at the castle, and Telio's warrior instincts kick back in, and then he gets the couple of quote unquote orphans. I'm not going to spoil who these orphans are and what they do for the cast, but then he goes and visits his cousin, who is for lack of a better word, like a shaman, woods person that uses healing through the woods, and there's some magic there. And then they stay there for a while, and they build there for a while. Then they decide what they're going to do, and then they travel to this next place, and they stay at this next place for a while. And you get these scenes of characters doing mundane stuff, like feeding horses, feeding animals, tending some stuff and some wool. Like they bring some goats through this pass while they travel, and they're tending the goats, and there's all that stuff that happens, very Tolkien-esque, where it's like they talk about what they eat and all that stuff. But the way that Palmer writes, it's just so endearing, and you just feel like you're connected to these characters, even though it has a very third person, almost omniscient but not omniscient, 1,000-foot view of these characters. So you're not really in close with them, but you are, because you're seeing what they're doing on a day to day, and how they're growing. And time, this book takes place over months and months. It's not just a quick journey, and it felt refreshing. Like I said, it feels refreshing because it's not something I usually read. I usually read these action oriented epic scale fantasies, and this one, while it is epic in scale and they go to these different places, and there are a little like almost episodic parts where they get there and then something happens and they have to figure out what's happening there, and they do that and then they move on to this next. But it just keeps building and building. And what's really cool is this magic system, the heliotrope itself, is like this stone ground, where it's called a heliotrope, and they do these like sword form. It felt very much, like a Eastern, like these Chinese, Japanese martial art movies where they're doing the martial arts forms on the ground, and then they feel the magic and the wind come through them, and they're doing these sword forms on these heliotropes, and then some of these people can like do magical things. So like there's this one character that can transport between heliotropes, and then she teaches Telio how to do that, and he learns to do this, and he is like a mage, and then there's like some stone mages that do some things, and it's a really cool magic system that was so understated, but like I said, with the rest of the story, it just builds and builds and builds, and you finally start seeing what's going on. And to be honest, the best thing about this book, aside from like the prose, which is phenomenal, and the storytelling is phenomenal, these characters are great. This is a good character study of older characters, because like I said, Telio's in his 40s. He's a retired warrior. He's got some past trauma, and then he gets these orphans who kind of remind him of the past trauma. And you just get this great character work, and it's a slow build, and you just like learn so much about them. And then by the end, you're just knee deep, and you're just like, wow, this is such a great story. And I'm quite surprised not more people are reading this book. It's got well over 100 ratings and on Goodreads and stuff, but this book was just phenomenal. It's probably my favorite read of the month. And if Palmer decides to do another story with his characters or another story in this world, I will be all over it. This style was just so much fun for me, and like I said, classic feel to the T. So that was Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. So the next book I read was Inquisitors: A Tale of Love and Damnation by Paul G. Zareith. This is a novella, and it's an interesting one. It's kind of got like eldritch horror, body horror. It's about an inquisitor. It's in the title. He is kind of funnily, it's very similar to the Telio character. He's an older, famous warrior, but he's kind of broken, after some past battles and stuff. And he's put in charge of the Inquisition Tower, and he spent many years there, and he is a torturer. And again, this is a character driven story where there is this sea cult or sea goddess that's kind of like the Eldritch Horror goddess. And there's a cult there, and there's a prisoner that this character um, is trying to uncover some political schemes and stuff going on. And what's happening there is like while the Inquisitor is trying to find out what's going on, it's also the prisoner is also being tortured by somebody else that the Inquisitor has no idea who is doing this, and is leaving behind that body horror stuff. Like, and again, I said this is a sea goddess, so there's like some sea body horror with like kelp growing out of their body and like all this. It's creepy. It's creepy on page, and it's creepy to see through the character's eyes. But this is a very much a character driven story. And what I really loved, and it's in the subtitle, A Tale of Love and Damnation, the main character, the Inquisitor, had a lost love, lost in battle many years before. And that trauma comes back to play in this scheme with the sea goddess. And it was very intriguing to see, because like he thinks that something like his lost love is like related to this plot, like the scheme, political scheme. And it's very interesting to see, and the character work is great. Paul's character work, phenomenal, chef's kiss here. And it builds to this plot, and things happen. I think the ending a little bit was a little Deus Machina, because the twist comes out of a little bit left field. It didn't it's there, and when you look back on it, you can kind of see it, but it wasn't like open to pick out right away. But the ending, the final few chapters, or the final few paragraphs of the final chapters, awesome. And this novel is a standalone. I thought the ending was really, really good and really strong. So check out Inquisitors by Paul G. Zareith. It was a good 150-page read, real quick. Really, really enjoyed that one. The chonker of the month. This one, it took me a long time, but it was an arc. It is The Ashen Viper by Joseph John Lee. This book, it's hard to describe this book without giving one spoilers, but two, it's a lot. And I say this with all love possible. It was such a phenomenal book. But it's long. It was 1,100 and almost 1,200 pages on my e-reader, and it's it's a build. It's just it's really long. It's really slow. There's a lot of trust that goes to the reader. Joseph John Lee puts so much trust on on you as the reader to just buy in, and it's worth it. Everything pays off. There is multiple points of view. But it's all centered on this historical event called the Great Betrayal. And this book is the first of I think, an 8-book series. I think there's going to be multiple. There are a couple trilogies in between, before you get to the final arc. And this first book is all about the character, the physical character called the Ashen Viper, and that's where this Great Betrayal starts off, with this Ashen Viper character. And it's a slow build, and there's cool it's an interesting concept of these lost papers found by this historian or a loresman in the world. And it's written, quote unquote, written like a book, which, funny enough, you put it in a book, but it's written like that. So but it also has these great epithets at the chapter top, where it tells you what, kind of hints at what's going on. But then there's footnotes by this loresman, which has a lot of cool backstory and lore, obviously, because he's a loresman. And that's where a lot of the voice comes in, is in the loresman's voice of the footnotes. But the feel of this, even though it's written in close third person, and each point of view character is written as their own character, and they have their own voice, and you know exactly who you're in based on the chapter and the voice. But there's also like this historical, scholarly feel to the way the writing is, and it was just really cool. And like I said, it's a long book, and some of these characters, their plots are kind of very slow. And I said this in my review, it's set up almost like Stormlight Archive, where you have your parts, and there's a set group of POV characters in each part, and some disappear between parts, some carry through all of them. But you have your arcs and you have your characters, and some of the characters, their arcs start a little slow, and you're kind of like, well, where is this going? And other characters are very kind of more fast paced. And then there's the characters that are between all the parts. The Ashen Viper character, which I won't spoil any names in there. You'll have to Rayfo to get there. But it's all really, really, really well done and planned out, and the arcs just come together, and all the characters actually come together except for one of the POVs. Or I'm sorry, two of the POVs, the main POVs. Of the six, four of them come together towards the end, and meet up and interact and go through with what they're going through. But what's really cool about this is there's multiple magic systems. There's an elemental magic system called Natura, however you want to pronounce it. And they can use fire, they can use earth, all that good, the elements. But what I love about this magic system is Joe John Lee told me this in DM after I asked him. The magic system is based on duality, so obviously there is light and dark, there's life and death, all that good stuff. But there's obviously, you can do something with magic, but there's also going to be a heavy consequence. And with Natura, if you use the earth or you use the elements of the world, that's going to be paid back on your body physically. So, these characters, if they use some magic, they'll age, they'll lose some time, or other things happen, which was really interesting to see. But that was cool. Then you have, Arcana, which is like this ancient magic that is from, no, I'm not going to go there. which with one of the main characters, the Ashen Viper character has arcana, and then you have some magical relics, which might be sword shaped. And then you have anima, which is another magic system, which I'm not going to go into. So there's so much going on with this magic. And again, this is a almost 1,200 page book, and it reads as a full trilogy in itself, because by the time you get to the Ashen Viper's true villain, it feels like the third book, because the comeuppance is just like 3 books worthy of an arc. And this is only book 1, 1,200 pages of book 1 of a massive saga. So it's just so much going on. But it was such an enjoyable ride. And I joke it almost killed me, because it took 3 weeks ish to read. I was reading a couple hundred pages a day, give or take, 100 pages a day, just enjoying it. And like I said, some of these character arcs, they start off slow and you're like, well, what's going to happen with these? But then by the end, you're just like, whoa, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So I definitely check out The Ashen Viper by Joseph John Lee. It was just phenomenal. I know a Kickstarter might be in the works, coming out, or it might be announced this month, maybe, give or take. But this book should be out in the fall for general release. So get this on your TBR. It's awesome if you're looking for the sprawling epic scale of a story. And check out The Ashen Viper by Joseph John Lee. So next I read The Lost Sentinel by Emma L. Adams, no relation. And it was an enjoyable book. It was a very enjoyable book. I know Emma writes, a bunch of her stories are urban fantasy. This one is not technically urban fantasy, at least in my mind, but it has a very urban fantasy feel, where the world building is just kind of, I'm not saying it's not there, because it does exist in this book, but it feels more, like our world almost, with some magic and some fantasy stylings put on there. And the way that this is written, it feels very urban, where it feels like it's not so much, lore dumping. There's not so much of, with epic fantasy or, classic fantasy, you have all these different races, you have all these different histories, you have all these different gods and all that stuff that you have to explain. Whereas urban fantasy, the world, like, how our world exists, how our things happen. And that's how it feels with this book. And yes, there is lore. There is some different some gods and some histories and stuff like that. There are these different lands, and there are dragons in here and stuff like that. But it is told in a way that feels very urban. And I kind of liked that, because it was a very quick read. This book was, maybe 350 to 400 pages, give or take. And it was a quick read, and it was a very enjoyable read. And some of the characters, also read a little more. They're not young adult, because they are in their 20s, but they read a little bit more of the young adult style, where it's a quick prose, quick storytelling style. And I enjoyed it a lot. This was a fun story. And the story is, there's these sentinels that protect this one land of from magic. And then there's another land that has a lot of magic. And then they just collide. There's these 2 characters that collide. The one sentinel's missing, and the granddaughter finds the sentinel's staff, and then some things happen, and the staff talks, which is, where some of the humor came from. And then there is this little boy character that is a bad person that kills a lot of people. He's not really a human. I don't want to spoil what he is or why he's there, but there's some cool history there. And then there's another character that is like an assassin wannabe, but she's terrible at being an assassin, and she's at this assassin school, and she meets a dragonette, which was really interesting and kind of funny. But they collide, and there's like some cool, interesting lore and in history here, and why this sentinel was lost, and what this little boy character is trying to do. And it was just a fun story. It was very character focused. Like I said, it's very urban fantasy style in that, where it's very character focused. The characters are doing the actions left and right, just going and going, going. But there's also a lot of character growth here, and I thought that was very, very fun. And I'm interested to see where the rest of the series goes. So check out The Lost Sentinel by Emma L. Adams. So the last book I finished was called The House of Midnight by Ben Hale and Kade. This one was interesting and it was a lot of fun. You can't go wrong in my world with characters from the gutter, or thieves from the lower class infiltrating some upper class, and but then getting caught up in political intrigue. That's just music to my ears. And this one was really interesting because the world of the House of Midnight is, they have what's called fates, and they're like, you get those, every person that's born, every person, upper or lower class, whatever, they have these fates, and there's five of them, and there's different, you know I guess you would say, magic to the fates. If you have a magic fate, you can do magic really well. If you have a combat fate, you become like a very good warrior. And these fates can be sold as currency. So the poor people will take their babies to this fate broker, and they'll take the fate in this hourglass, and they take it from it and it leaves a scar. So a lot of people in this world walk around with their sleeves, no sleeves, because you can see if they have multiple fates or if they don't have any fates. And obviously the rich people can buy fates. So some people will have multiple fates, but if your body rejects a fate, you become what's called withered, and you're basically like this husk of a human. You have no, thoughts of your own. You kind of just become this like mindless slave for people to move around. But then there are the epic fates, which are like these rare fates that have these cool powers. Like this one character is um, a general in this one city. This book takes place in one city, which was kind of interesting. And this general is called Steelskin, and basically she's like Colossus. She turns her body into steel armor, and she can't be pierced by weapons. But there is the house. There's multiple houses based on the fates that they own. So you have your combat house, you have your magic house, or whatever, and then the epic fates, which are these rare fates. And the main character, or one of the main characters, Zuri, had an epic fate, but her mother sold it when she was young. And you see that in the prologue through the eyes of her older brother. And her older brother is one of the three main points of view. And the brother, Trider, his whole goal is to find his sister Zuri's fate when he gets older. So he goes through all of this training. He works with the gangs and all this stuff. And then he actually gets contacted by this mysterious house called the House of Midnight, which doesn't exist. And he uncovers, so in his I don't I guess I should spoil it. Trider gets murdered before the story starts. So Trider's point of view chapters are in the past, and then there's two points of view, Zuri and then this other character, um, gutter thief character, are in 4 years later. So the Trider points of view you uncover, and you only have a handful of these throughout the course of the story at important parts where some lore needs to be dropped, or some things need to be explained, and you uncover what he was doing with the House of Midnight. And the whole purpose of the House of Midnight is there's this one ruler hundreds of years ago that had multiple epic fates, like five epic fates. He was basically immortal, and he has this cult which is in another house. In the future, or in the present tense, or present time, and they're trying to release him or bring him back, and they need Zuri's fate to do so. Like her fate obviously is the one, her epic fate is the one that can do it, but the House of Midnight is also trying to find her. So there's like these three points of view, two different timelines, trying to figure out what's going on with this epic fate and this immortal godlike character. So it was just awesome, like with the fate magic, with the gutter character, the gutter POV characters, the dual timelines just coming together all nicely. There's so much political intrigue. There's cool world building. The magic is cool. The action is awesome. I guess my only complaint about the book was it felt rushed in terms of editing. I don't usually like to call that out with indie books, but this one was kind of glaring. There was a lot of editing issues. And I only say that because both of these authors are, pretty well known, and they've been around for a while in the indie game. So it was kind of surprising to see how rushed it was in terms of editing. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It was just like I think that was like my only quibble with it. And I know that the second book is either out or it's going to be out soon, and I'm just very interested where it goes because the ending it's very much how do I say this without spoiling? It's an ending, but it's not the ending. And there is some things that happen at the ending that set up perfectly for is going to happen in this rest of the series. But it's not a positive ending, which is a good thing for me. I like it when endings are not good and clear at the end. Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes. So check out The House of Midnight by Ben Hale and Kade. And that was it. I only read 6 books or finished 6 books. I got through a few others that were just not my cup of tea. And I started a couple others that I'll carry over into this month and, finish off this month. But yeah, 6 books, very good 6 books, a couple of chonkers in there, a couple of novellas, and some very good books for me this month. So I will see you next month with my indie book update.